What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live with me, your host and international award winning Make Every Second Count speaker. I am so pumped up to say that every time I say it. I'm so happy that you guys are here with me tonight because you are going to be surprised by this guy's story. I definitely am, and I'm still learning a lot of it. So, first of all, I need to ask you guys if you would please share this episode out. Invite all kinds of people to watch it. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up, that hearts, that frowny faces, that cry faces. Heck, you can even get mad at us. I don't care. Just help us trick the algorithm on any of the socials that we're on. Also, please keep the comments coming. We want to have more of a conversation than just a presentation. So keep those comments coming. Ask as many questions as you would like and tell us your biggest takeaway in the comments as well. So, with no further ado, I would like to bring to the stage the man, the myth, the legend, Doc. Hey, Doc, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother.
That
Thank you
is
so much for this
great.
opportunity. Yeah,
Yes, you are so welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy evening to be with here with me and my viewers.
yeah.
So, if you would like to go through a short introduction about yourself, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do. I'm
Okay,
going to be inviting some people on my phone, so I'm looking down, but I am paying attention.
okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is David Spencer, and I am uh, a pastor and a doctor of philosophy of pastoral counseling. I have my PhD in. I live south of Boston, closer to Cape Cod, in a city called New Bedford. I've been there for years, decades, and I have a ministry called Kingdom Mindset Development, and it's just you know mental health care, but a biblical approach to mental health care, and it's not churchy or religious. It's a kingdom mindset.
That is awesome. I'm
Yeah, it's
so
different.
glad to hear that. Actually, I have a friend from New Bedford, Massachusetts, but he doesn't live there. He's from there originally. His name is Roland Manny.
Roland Manny.
Yeah.
I only know one Roland, and he used to study martial arts. I don't know
Well,
if it's the
he's
same guy.
rolling,
Keep that doggy rolling.
rawhide. Awesome. So awesome. So, in case you guys don't know, Doc here is also a musician. And I know when I was just in Kansas City, when we were sitting on the World War One memorial and museum, we were sitting out by the reflection pond. He is playing music and it's just a vibe. The whole thing is a vibe. I have to tell you right there. So, but first of all, I need to ask. All right, so my background is when I was 17, I was involved in a very serious car accident. I spent 2.5 months in a coma and 3.5 in the hospital. I was told I wouldn't walk again, but I do. And I want to show everybody that they can accomplish anything in life they want to accomplish if they just focus. So I have to ask, has there been anything in your past you have had to grow out of or through in order to get to where you are now?
Oh yes. Oh Lord. I had to get past myself, the man in the mirror that had accumulated all this worldly view and worldly attitude, and and had put on so much of the world's view of things from the time of the womb that my spirit was buried underneath everything. And it took a long time, like, let me see, about 32 years before I was able to start saying, you know what, like Sinatra, I think, said, I've got to be me. I got to be me. And that's when I really had to break through and came into who I am becoming. I'm becoming a better you, like Sister
Yeah.
Brenda, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm 71 years old, you know, but I'm still
71.
becoming. Yeah, so I'm a
Yeah.
lifetime learner. You know, I messed up the first part of my life. I didn't learn anything but negativity and abuse and all that drug use and womanizing, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll. The 60s, baby. Those people brought up in the 60s know what I'm talking about.
Well, that is also pretty cool. But I have to ask, what exactly do you mean about the people that were brought up in the 60s? It's an, a mystery.
Yeah. Well, when were you born? What year were you born?
84.
Oh, wow. No wonder you don't understand. A lot has happened between the 60s and 84. But back in the 60s, you know, I was like, at 63, I was 10 years old. So I was just coming into my teenage years. And what do we have? We had the British invasion. We had the Vietnam War. We had Watergate, Kent State. We had the hippie movement, the AIM movement, the Black Panther Party. We had all kind of things going on, and we had the hippie movement. So as a kid at that age, it's like, this is great. You
Yeah.
know, hitchhike everywhere, have all the sex you want. You know, it was crazy. It was just a crazy time, which led into, of course, other more serious things with drugs and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we have Adam Mark Robinson in the comments saying the 60s sound amazing, David. You are awesome looking for 71. I can't see you in the clubs, man, rocking, keeping it fresh.
Amen. That's right.
And he is actually from the UK, so this
Oh,
is an international show. And
nice.
then we have Ben Bruce Ifane Jr., who's watching, and he is actually from Nigeria. So
Oh,
definitely an international show. We thank you guys so much for watching. And
right.
then we also have my dad who's watching from across the street from my house right now. He stalks me like that. So
Mm. Yeah, I've been to Ghana 3 times.
yeah,
Speaking of Ghana, oh yeah, yeah, I love it.
that's
Live with the
awesome.
people, live in the village. You know, really. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
So I have to ask. I mean, you were telling me a little bit about you used to use drugs and sell drugs and all kinds of things.
Mm.
What was that like? I mean, how was it always having to look over your shoulder?
It was awful. I mean, you know, it was awful. You know, I got to the point where I was going to commit suicide. I just felt like, you know, all I did was sell drugs and play music and womanize and get high. And I got to the age of 32 and I was like, man, I got to stop this, man. I felt like I messed up people's lives, you know, and I felt like I didn't want to live anymore. So I attempted, you know, suicide. But I just heard something inside of me say, listen, it said just like this, I heard inside of me. You want to trade places?
Yeah.
I said, yep. Because the real you doesn't want to do it. I don't care who it is. Who's committing suicide out there? The real you doesn't want to do it. Listen to the real you if y'all listening to this program in the shoe I'm talking to, which could be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So were you dealing with a lot of mental health issues at that time? I mean, you do a mental health thing now.
Right.
So
Well,
I was curious if it had any correlation with your past or not.
yeah, after that, because once of my conversion, once that happened, I had the strength to go to night school and get my GED because I wanted to go to Bible school. That's all. I didn't want to ever be whatever. I'm just a grateful guy. You know what I mean? That I got saved out of that lifestyle. Never had no desires to be any kind of office in the church and stuff like that. That's why I'm probably a black sheep in my community, even though I've done a lot in the community.
Yeah.
Letters from the chief of police, how we changed whole neighborhoods and the value, the property value. But well,
That sounds amazing. So I know that there are a lot of people out there dealing with all kinds of things in life. Even some people, I'm sure, that are going through something similar that you went through.
mhm.
What would you tell that person today that
Well,
could help them out or possibly save their life?
okay. I'm gonna tell you. I worked in the prison for like seven years, and as a counseling clinician. But I knew a lot of the guys.
Hmm.
I knew a lot of the guys, man, and it was like, you got caught and I didn't. So let's talk. And they knew me, so I could talk to them and try to help them understand that they're not bad people, man. It's just the world stuff that piled so much on them that and they couldn't find a way out. So they went and branched out the best way they knew how. And some of them would get it and be like, yeah. I said, you got your problems, the guy in the mirror. I said, it ain't the devil no more. It's that guy in the mirror. You got to be careful about what he hears and who you listen to. I would tell them that's what I'm developing a game right now called A Conversation with Yourself.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, it's just like we just started talking. Yeah, so like what I do this, when I get up, I exercise while I'm in bed and stuff. But when I get up, and I look in the mirror, I say, "Hey, how you doing?" You know what I mean? I say good morning to myself. So I treat myself like my best friend because me and him didn't get along for 32 years. We battled, right? But then I started to know why he was like the way he was, and all of a sudden now we're getting closer. You know what I mean? And I that's what I would tell him. I say, listen, talk to yourself. It's biblical. I can show you in the Bible where David talked to himself and the others did. But that's what I would tell people. I tell them, look, if you understand the fivefold ministry, you'd understand the office of a pastor, apostle, pastor, evangelist, prophet, teacher. Well, I function more in a prophetic, not so much in telling the future and things like that, but my personality is like Ernesto, cook or get out the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, man, time is our most valuable thing. And at my age, I know I only got so much time. That's why the title of your program and what you've been through, it was like, wow. I said, this brother really thought this thing out,
Thank you.
really with the beginning and everything. I said, wow. Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. So we have another question here in the comments. Ben Bruce is saying, "What is your burning passion? The one that motivated you to help drive you to success in life and not let the negative consume you?"
Jesus. Jesus. What can I tell you? You know what I mean? Because what he did for me, I'm street, bro. And when I think about beatings, I know. I've worked in the prisons. I know when somebody takes a beating, getting punched about and getting beat up is two different things. And what he went through, no, thank you, bro. How can I help you? And so he's helped me. So that's all I can tell you. It's simple. It's not religion. It's none of that. It's none of that. It's just like You said you'd help, right? Okay. Help me. That's me, to each his own.
So, so what would you tell the person that isn't religious or isn't spiritual? What would you tell them about how they can change their life?
I think if they pursue whatever they would do without pay, with passion, they're probably on their gift, the gift that they've been given. You know what I mean? And as they pursue that gift with passion, they'll be better off. That's all I can say. You know.
So, how can someone find their passion?
You
Uh,
already know what I want to say. Jesus. You find it because how does somebody in Mercedes Benz find out what's wrong with the engine? They don't go to Ford or Chevy, they go to Mercedes Benz. So I guess it depends on where you think you came from. That's where you go to the source and ask the source to help you. I, that's just me.
yeah, we have a strange question from Ben Bruce. He's saying Spencer is a common name here in Africa.
Hmm.
Are you from Cape Verde? It's very popular there. Do you visit there?
Yeah, I've been to Cape Verde 2 years ago. I went there and saw Maria Smith, I believe. She was the U.S. ambassador. And I went there. Guess why? She asked me, "Why did you come?" I said, "God sent me." And we talked. I talked with her and the board about the deportation, from New Bedford and back and forth and things like that. Tried to have some kind of conclusion, some help. But I enjoyed it. I stood for 1 month. A friend of mine, he was he had a nice studio and he was very well known, and I would stay there near downtown. Would stay at the studio with Kaku Alves. You know the names, Kaku Alves and his brother. Well, if you're from Cape Verde, you know who they are. They're big musicians. Okay,
Oh,
but yeah, I've been there, and I am
that's
Cape Verde.
cool.
Yeah, I was
So,
I was birthed Cape Verde. Let me
yeah,
straighten that out.
yeah. So, when did you come here?
I was born in America.
Oh,
Yeah, but I've traveled all my life. I've been a merchant seaman, a road musician, from the Chitlin Circuit right up to Bally's Casino, Atlantic City, off Broadway musical. And I don't read or write music.
wow.
I know that's what I say. I look in the mirror and I go, "You did that?" Or we did that. Yeah, it's amazing.
All right. So, we have another question. They're going crazy with questions tonight. So, how did you become a pastor? And how did that change your life? And with all the responsibilities that it brought.
Well, you know what happened? I never went to Bible school to be a pastor. I just wanted to be around people who love God like I love God. Because the regular people I hung with, they were drug dealers. You know what I mean? Street cats. I had to get out of there. So I moved like 30 minutes away from where I went just so I wouldn't go back as much. I tried to work with the Lord, to separate myself. Things started to change. Then 700 Club sent me to a church down there, so I went. And first thing I asked the pastor, I said, "You ever been in a fight?" I said, "You ever done drugs?" I said, "Because I ain't sitting there nobody who ain't gone through nothing. That's just me." But when I was in Bible school, I was playing with the worship team. I went to Christ for the Nations, age 9, 90, and I always played with the worship team. And I always stood after everybody left, 2,000 students, but I would stay just to absorb. Wow, just absorb the atmosphere. And one day, three guys came walking way back from back of the auditorium, and they came walking toward me. I'm sitting there with my guitar playing, and they said, "Are you David Spencer?" And because of my background, even though I was born again Christian, I was like, "Who are you?" Who wants to know? And they said, "Well, we're from Brockton, blah blah. They're pastors with such and such denomination. They'd like me to." They said, listen, they said, we'd like you to plant a church. And I was so street, I was like, plant a church? How do you plant a church?
That's a good question. I would ask the same thing. What does that mean?
They explained it all to me, and I went back, told the wife, I said, look, what do you want to do? And she says, well, as long as we don't go back to New Bedford, let's go to Wareham. They gave us a choice. So we went to the Cape, which was about half an hour from New Bedford. End up buying a bar room, starting a church in the worst part of the town, getting letters from the chief of police, how we changed the neighborhood and brought up the price of property and things like that. And then so many people were coming from New Bedford. I started another church in New Bedford. So I had two, but then I had to give up one. And so I gave up one. And, you know, life goes on. But that's how I became a pastor. You know, I said, I even used to tell my people, I'm not a pastor. My fuse is too short. I can't take burping you and patting you on the back. Pastors have a shepherding blessing on them. They have that anointing to, I'm so sorry. Pastors are like, okay, what next? Okay, okay. All right, if you do this, you probably, get a grab on it, but you got to do it. Where teachers would be like, this is why, you have to do it that way. So, each of us have different gifts, but that's how you find your gift through the relationship with the one who created the pot. All right.
That's awesome. Now, Adam is in the comments saying that he noticed you were an author on a website. Um, can you tell us a little about your book?
Yeah, I have. Well, I have two books I've written. It's called So You Want to Be in the Ministry. And the subtitle is Things You Need to Know Before You Accept Your Assignment. One of my friends told me, you're not going to sell a lot of those. I said, I didn't plan on selling a lot of them. I want just people who really, know what they're getting into, to understand it's kingdom work. But I have that. And then I have a book called What Did You Say? And the subtitle is, it's not just what you say, but why, when, and how you say it. You can tell anything to anybody. It just depends how,
You
when, and
say,
why you say it, right? And then I have my dissertation for my PhD I did on recidivism, coming back and forth to prison all the time, in and out. Went to a lot of prisons, got permission from the sheriffs to talk to the lifers and different people, and I get along with everybody. So, you know what I mean? It was like nothing, but they gave me a lot of like really like wow, it's another world. Plus I worked there 7 years, like I said earlier. But
yeah,
I have that. Then I have two AI books that I kind of use just for like my personal manuals
yeah.
because I look at that and say, oh, I would say something like that. There's a lot of it. It's like, okay, well, that's not me. You know what I mean? But I'm not that familiar with it yet.
Yeah. So we actually have Robert Brooker in the comments who's from Canada. So everybody watching is from outside the United States tonight, besides
Oh,
my dad.
uh-huh.
But he says, did it feel strange the first time someone asked you to sign their book? Or has that ever happened?
The first, the first time they asked me to sign the book,
Yeah.
it was just like, okay, you know, okay. This is good for you. You know what I mean? I'm glad that you want it because I think it'll affect you if you read it. It's from my heart. You know what I mean? It's like when you buy a book, you buy a piece of somebody's mind. There's so much that goes into putting a book together. So much thought. Not just the font and the color and the sightings and different things that you gotta. There's a lot to it. So you got to really a piece of somebody's heart. They take time with the sentencing and the correct words and grammar. Gee.
Yeah, that is so cool. And
Mhm.
then Adam is also asking in the comments, um, can he find do you have Christian music and can he find that anywhere?
Well, you know something, brother? I got I got like 7 songs right now. I want to do an EP, but You know, my three best friends, right? They had studios. They all passed away. So, and you know, they gave me copies of my songs, but I gotta find somebody who can separate them so I can make the EP, because you know some of them are public, you know, domain, and some of them are mine. I've got other songs, but I just, you know, I can't afford to record them. That's just the
Yeah.
way it is. But I got songs, you know, ready to go. But yeah, I wish I did have something for you. You know, you can go to there's just that. I don't even know if it's on there anymore. No, just have to stay in touch, I guess, with Jeff.
All right. Well, that is awesome, David. We are unfortunately almost out of time, but I want to ask you if you have any contact information you would like to give out.
Yeah, if they want to get in touch with me, go to drdavidspencer.com. No period after the DI, just drdavidspencer.com. My website will come up. There's information about me there, working on the site a little. So, you know, click on the drop down windows and there's different things. I don't even know where they are. I got to get all that stuff squared away, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Thank
Hey, that is phenomenal. Thank you so much again for being here tonight.
you.
I want to tell you and everybody out there that you guys all need to do me a favor this week, next week, and for the rest of your life. You have to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when those seconds will run out on your one life. I'll see you guys back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, you have a fantastic week. And again, thank you, David.
Thank
Everybody have
you.
a great night.
Okay, see y'all later. Hello?